Today on CityCast Chicago, we are really bad at recycling, y'all. Like, really bad. Like, less than 10% of our waste is recycled bad. Like, among the worst in the country bad. Axios Chicago's Monica Ang has been covering this for years. So I called her up to learn why Chicago is putting so much trash into landfills and how I could improve my own recycling habits. Because, spoiler alert, I'm also real bad. It's Monday, October 2nd. I'm Jacoby Cochran, and this is what Chicago's talking about. I brought you back because you have been so gracious over the last 2.5 years to serve as my personal 311. And now I've got questions about recycling. So welcome back to CityCast Chicago, Monica.
Thanks so much. I am always happy to be your 311, unless you've got a dead animal in front of your house and you need someone to come by with a shovel. I can't do that.
I would never ask you to do that. The big question, why is Chicago so bad at recycling? What are some of the factors that go into our horrendous record?
Well, I have to believe that some of it has to do with our cynicism over a lot of failed programs over the year. Blue bag, blah, blah, blue bin. And then a lot of exposés, you talk to the Department of Streets and Sanitation, and sometimes they'll be like, well, you guys are always doing these exposés, making it seem like we're not doing anything. And like, well, what are we supposed to do if you're not really doing anything? At a recent event that Axios held, a guy said to me, he said, I've been spying on the recycling bins in Chicago Park districts and seeing that they're just dumping them in the garbage can. And the guy was actually a documentary maker. I said, if you can send me that video, I would love to put it online. So there will be more stories. And I think, as people wonder if this stuff is actually getting recycled, plus a lot of stories that looked at how, certain countries in Asia are no longer taking plastic, I think that really contributes to the cynicism. But that said, other cities are doing much better at waste diversion, especially San Francisco. It all gets complicated. There's something called tipping fees. So how much it costs to send all of our crap to landfills is actually very cheap in the Midwest. And so it's easier just to say, who wants to sort anything? Let's just send it all to the landfill.
Do you have a sense of what the comparable price there is? Like, how much are we saving to just dump everything together?
I wish I had the very latest figures in front of me, but every time I do the story, they say, yeah, it costs more to divert it, but you have to think about how things are improving by diverting it. So it's better for the environment, and it's better to take this plastic and make it into something else, or this glass and to make it into more glass. So in San Francisco, it costs more to send it to landfills than to recycle it. Here, the equation is different. And so it's much easier for a municipality to say, I want to save money, so just send it to the old landfill. So some people have talked about making it artificially more expensive to send it to a landfill so that municipalities will do the right thing. So there are a bunch of factors that lead us to bad recycling. But one of the factors that we can work on, and maybe the media should play another role, I should do another 10 stories, is teaching people that it can be simple, that's probably going to get recycled, and that don't put this in there, but do put that in there.
When I go Google Chicago recycling history, not only do I get the numbers where we're recycling less than 10%, where places on the West Coast are hitting their 70, 80% marks, but your name come up over and over. You've been writing about this for years and years and years. Why should I care if we're recycling? Like you said, there's so much cynicism out there. How much impact is it having on the environment? If I recycle, will Chicago recycle? Like, why should I be paying attention?
Because it's the right thing to do. I cannot guarantee you, just like the documentarian said, yeah, some of it seems to be just dumped in the regular garbage trucks. But theoretically, if it's done right, and I have to believe every time there's a new administration, I say, this is the one that's going to do it right. If it's done right, this stuff, at least a percentage of it, can go into making that next plastic bag or that purse that is made out of, your old Mountain Dew bottle, or glass and aluminum. Oh, please, if you just recycle anything, please recycle your cans, because that is something where you can recycle almost 100% of it can be made into another aluminum can. And so if we get it right, If the markets for plastic grow again, then this can actually be something that in the ideal world could create a revenue source for the city. It's better than sending it to a landfill because we are running out of landfills.
I mean, are we supposed to be recycling in Chicago? Is this required by law?
It's not required by law. And in fact, when Lori Lightfoot came out with her waste plan in 2021, she came out with no like mandates, but there were sort of goals.
So if the city isn't, what about like individual homeowners?
Actually, the city does mandate that. So streets and sanitation, they take care of everybody who is in anything from a single family home up to, I believe, a 6 flat. Anything over that is taken care of by private haulers. And you can narc out your landlord and say, hey, I'm in a 10 flat and my landlord does not have any recycling. Some people have found there was retribution and their landlord wasn't happy that they were narked out. But you should be able to report your landlord to the city if they do not pay for a recycling hauler. Some investigations of that in the past were finding that the city was not properly fining or effectively or robustly fining and following up on these complaints. But theoretically, every building in the city should have a recycling hauler.
So if your building is taken care of and that's a private place, but for single family homes and, 6 flat and beneath, you said that Streets and Sands was processing that?
Yeah, those should be Chicago garbage trucks, but they may not say the city of Chicago on the side. They may say Lakeshore Recycling because that is now our number one hauler after that huge scandal with Waste Management where it was seen that they might have a dual interest in rejecting. So when they go and they see the blue bin and they say, okay, so someone put a bunch of spaghetti on top of these pizza boxes and then they smashed up all the glass and then the glass got stuck in the pizza box. They're like, this is contaminated. Guess what? It's going to the landfill. Sometimes it could go to their landfill, which would get them more money in tipping fees. That was the conflict of interest that the BGA reported on.
Have I ever talked to you where there wasn't a conflict of interest, a scandal, some corruption hidden in the numbers or hidden in the history?
I don't know. I hope one day I can talk to you about some good news. But Waste Management is out of the picture now. And so hopefully Lakeshore Recycling, which just opened up this new facility called The Exchange, they say this is a new day and we're going to do a better job. We've got this great new facility and it can really sort this stuff and really get the most out of these commodities. What the biggest problem I see is, and a lot of recycling experts, including the oldest recycling expert in Chicago, see, Ken Dunn, he said the problem is we've got single stream recycling where we're like, just throw it all in one bin. I don't care if it's glass. I don't care if it's paper. I don't care if it's a tin can. And the problem with that is there is that contamination. We wouldn't have contamination if we separated, if we had multi-stream or at least 2-stream. And that's what Ken Dunn says would make all the difference in getting these commodities to the sorting facilities in such good shape that they actually could make money for the city. I just got a note back from the city. I said, are you ever considering multi-stream, no longer this single stream? They said, we're not considering it at this time.
I'd imagine a huge mistake amongst individuals is that we're not even separating it from our garbage, let alone sort of breaking up the different recyclable materials.
And that's what the city says to me. They're like, Monica, I can't even get people to like not throw their baby's diapers in here. You really think I'm going to get them to separate paper from glass and cans? I said, well, you can try. Maybe, right? If we can at least start selling these commodities and making this a more successful program. So again, lots of complications.
So when we try to recycle, what are the biggest mistakes that we're making as individuals?
Contamination. So, okay, there's a pretty good chance that we could get a stack of newspapers to a paper mill and recycle them. And, there's a lot of confusion around pizza boxes. Some people say, never put a pizza box in. I talked to the experts that say, we would love high quality cardboard. Just make sure there's not a ton of cheese stuck to it. There's that round thing that you get in your pizza box underneath your pizza, and then there's the pizza box. Get rid of the round thing because that usually has a bunch of globs of pizza, cheese, and sauce on it. But as long as your box is not like totally soaked in grease, it is good stock for recycling. People don't understand that. There's a lot of conflicting information about there. So Do recycle your cardboard, flatten your cardboard, close the lid on the blue bin. If rain gets in there, a lot of that stuff again gets contaminated. And so one thing you can't control is your neighbors. So you're perfect at recycling. You're breaking down all your Amazon boxes. You're rinsing out your mayonnaise cans and dumping out all the beer from your Budweiser cans before putting them in. And then your neighbor comes in and throws like dirty diapers full of poop in there, or, all sorts of tuna fish all over it, and then smashes a bunch of glass that gets embedded into the paper. Then all the work you've done is screwed up. So those are some mistakes that happen. I don't know. Some people said the way you can get around having your neighbors ruin everything for you is pull your blue bin into your yard, if you have a yard, and then push it back out on collection day. That way, like theoretically, your household has its own blue bin, and that way your neighbors can't screw things up for you.
I know it's the right thing to do. I'm just sitting here thinking, I've got to hope that all of the work that I put in is matched by the people. I live in a 10 flat, right? There's, dozens and dozens of families who live here. Then I got to make sure everyone in the building, hopefully, is also cleaning and putting their stuff in the recycle. Then I got to make sure that the building is licensing a private company to come and get the recyclable. And then that's going to get to the city or to the company. And then they're just going to one stream it all together. And so at some point, it feels like the work is going to get knocked off of the track. It seems like so many steps to get things right. What are some of the biggest questions you've gotten over the years?
Let me quiz you. What do you do with your yard waste?
You're talking about like leaves?
Leaves, grass clippings
from the mowing. Oh,
weeds.
Are you supposed to put that in a bag and put it separate? Like put it next to your garbages? You're not supposed to actually put them in your garbage can, right?
And call 311 to say, you say, hey, I've got a bag of weeds next to my garbage can. Can you please pick it up? And okay, here's another quiz. When you recycle, what kind of bag should you put your recycling in when you put it in the bin? Trick question.
You shouldn't. You should just put your recyclables in the bin.
No bag. And so it's so confusing. They're like, make sure you bag up your garbage. They always want to make sure bag up your garbage. But do not bag up your recycling. Make sure there's not a single bag. In fact, if we see some plastic bags, they're going to mess up our sorting facility and it might be contaminated. It's all so confusing.
I'm supposed to clean the Italian Fiesta box and then keep it around separate from the trash in the crib until I'm ready to throw the trash. I know I want to do better. I'm not just throwing in a bunch of excuses as to why I'm not going to improve as a recycler. I'm just acknowledging how many different steps there are.
It's confusing. It's complicated. Enforcement is not good. Well, there is a place in North Park Nature Center where Ken Dunn, who's the OG of recycling in Chicago, has a multi-stream sorting facility. And so you can feel really good about yourself. Like, hey, kids, let's get in the car and let's put all our recycling. All right, that's where the green glass goes. That's where the brown glass goes. Hey, let's put our stack of old New Yorkers over there. And boy, do we feel good about ourselves. And he really does do it. It's had some problems with the city where they said that it wasn't being kept up properly. I think those have been taken care of. And then you can go for a nature walk right there it's the old TB sanitarium, but now it's a nature center after you've done your feel good recycling. That is one way that I feel confident that stuff is actually going to be recycled.
I mean, how do we know if our recyclables are actually getting recycled?
You can do a stakeout and you can watch as they pick it up and then go to the transfer station and watch when it goes from the transfer station to the facility. Journalists have done that, but are they showing us a Potemkin village? Because you have to go through the publicist. Who knows? But I do have some hope for this new facility called The Exchange, where they say they're partnering with the city, Lakeshore Recycling's partnering with the city to really improve our diversion rate. I'm also talking to the city about composting because 20% of our waste by weight is organic waste that could be composted. So actually, I'm working on a story saying to the city, okay, in Brandon Johnson's Environmental Transition Committee report, they said they want to see citywide curbside composting. There's not even pilot curbside composting.
Is that something other cities do?
Oh my gosh. Bay Area, Portland, Seattle. Trying to think, I want to say even someplace in the Midwest. Yeah, and if you're found to not compost, you get fined. So they have like a really big bin for recycling, a smaller bin for organic waste, and a very tiny bin for everything else in these municipalities. So it's being done. And the city, they don't want to put punitive stuff on it, but you can compost, you can do organic waste in Evanston and Oak Park. So why can't we do that in Chicago? Believe me, I've asked this question to Department of Streets and Sanitation a million times. They think I'm a giant pain in the neck.
We're running out of landfill space. We need to educate the city at large on composting, on recycling. Monica, where do we start here?
Well, that's what I'm bothering them about. I mean, they were at the ribbon cutting for this Lakeshore recycling facility, so they feel fairly invested in it. But on our end, can they get consumers to start trusting so that they actually put the recyclables in there and that they're in a condition that can be recycled in order to get it to this facility and start sending out these commodities to hopefully make the city some money back? I think that's their plan. But I'm pushing them hard on organic waste that can be composted. I don't know if you know Erica Allen of Urban Growers Collective. She's created this giant digester in Auburn Gresham that can take about 1/10 of the city's organic waste and then create beautiful compost coming out of this spigot, and then methane to become a renewable source of energy on the other spigot. And she's ready to pull the trigger on it once the city has her jump through some more regulatory hoops. And that could be like a huge source of jobs and green infrastructure on in Auburn Gresham, and creating renewable energy for us.
So what are you saying to people beyond it's the right thing to do? Sure, we want the city to do better. We want the companies to do better, but we also have to start. What does that look like in your daily practice, Monica? How are you exhibiting good recycling behavior in your own daily life? And how can I pick up on that?
We have a lot of containers in our house. One of them is just for recycling, and it's just a nice handy pail with handles. So we don't put any bag in there, so there's never the bag issue. And it's easy just to kind of walk outside and dump that in there. I tell my kids, rinse it out. It doesn't have to be perfect. They've got machines that can get the rest of that peanut butter out of there. Talk to your neighbors and say, hey guys, we all want this stuff to not be contaminated. So do we all know the basic rules? They might think you're a weirdo. On the composting front, you can do a lot of that at home. You can leave your leaves and your grass right on your lawn and they will compost themselves. You can do a mulch pile. You can have composting bins like we have in our back. There's this new thing called a Lomi that I just bought, and always want to buy stuff, but I can take all my food scraps and put it in basically what looks like a big crock pot. 3 hours later, it becomes dust. It looks like cornflakes, basically, that I can throw in my composter or throw in my garden. That immediately takes away about 1/3 of all of the waste I'm creating in my kitchen. If you can't afford a Lomi, you can probably, compost in your backyard. Just make sure you're balancing it right. My daughter didn't. Boy, did she stink up her house back in college. Like all her roommates wanted to throw her out because it smelled horrible for like 3 months. So just, balance the stuff out. Make sure you're not getting rats. Or you can get there are a lot of composting services, Urban Canopy, Collective Resource, and more, who will come and pick up your organic waste. It costs like $300 a year if you can afford it. That's another way you can make sure that the waste you're creating in your house goes back to create something good for the earth, like compost.
Any extra tips for renters in big buildings like myself?
It depends on the relationship you have with your landlord. If your landlord is not doing this, you might want to politely remind them that the law says they have to provide a recycling service. If you are worried they're going to penalize you, then you might want to have a friend drop a dime on them. But basically, you can call 311 and say, X address does not have a contractor for recycling. And, if you have, like a condo committee where everyone talks, say, hey guys, I'd love to be the chair of the recycling committee and have fun recycling information parties. Let's have a pizza and show everyone how to break down that pizza box.
I love your spirit so much, Monica. I love it so much.
I believe that the new Johnson administration really is aiming to do better environmentally for the city. And so just take that as your sort of fresh reason for hope.
Axios Chicago's writer, Monica Eng, a recycle pizza party. That's what we got for y'all today. I appreciate you so much, Monica.
Thank you, Jacoby.
Before I let you go, for more news and events, including a breakdown of Illinois' new law mandating that Indigenous and Native American history be taught in public schools, head over to chicago.citycast.fm. And while you're there, make sure you subscribe to our daily newsletter, Hey Chicago. Of course, I got to give you some good news. The 55th Jeff Awards celebrating the best in Chicagoland theater are tonight. Shout out to all the homies and performers who are nominated this year. And if you're interested, there are still tickets available to attend the live ceremony. You can check the show notes for the link. As always, we appreciate you for listening and reading. We're back bright and early in your feeds and inboxes tomorrow morning. We'll talk to you then. Peace. And how I could also improve my own recycling habits. Because spoiler alert, that's my mail app going off.